Welcome back. So in this video, we'll talk about joining, or not joining so much, but parenting, creating child-parent relationships. And then we'll also look at the animation. Make sure you save as well. All right. So let me just talk a little bit about, joining things together. Now, if you did join all these objects, well, we spent all our time making sure that they were separate objects, okay? So they're individual objects, so I can click on each one, and they have a different name, okay? And we've called them different names there. They are separate. And what is important about being separate is that allows them to be animated individually. If they were all joined together, if I wanted, say, the periscope to rotate, if I tried to rotate that, well, I'd have to rotate the whole submarine. Same with this, same with this. So we want to sort of avoid joining things that are going to have to move independently. Now, the issue comes up that, well, I want to move the sub, and we leave everything behind. So there is sort of a happy middle there, and that is parenting. And so what I'm going to do here is just get a good view, okay? And I'm going to take everything, I'm going to hold Control, and I'm going to right-click on everything. Now the important thing is that, let me try this again. Sorry, hold Shift. I'm doing it the wrong way. Hold Shift, sorry. And select everything. And then select the submarine body itself last. Good. Okay, so I got 1, 2, 3, and they've got this sort of yellow, orangey outline on them. And then the last one I selected has the sort of more of a yellow outline. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to hit Control and P. So Control and P as in parent. And it says set parent to the object, the last one that we selected. So now this submarine is a parent to all the rest. And under here you can see that the submarine has the propeller, the rudder, and the periscope underneath it. So what happens now is that this periscope can still move independently, okay? Same with the rudder, same with the propeller. But when I grab that submarine, all the children follow the parent, okay? And really that's what's going to be very essential for doing our animation here. Okay, so that was the parenting. Basically select everything and select the parent last, and then hit Control P. Now, let's do some animation. That's what we're here for. I'm just going to bring this up a little bit, just so that we've got a little bit more room. And I noticed, can't see that very bottom bit. I'm just going to, sorry, just bring that up so you can see everything fine. All right. Now it jumped up. Okay. Good. So now you can see down here at the bottom. What this is a timeline window, and you'll find this in a lot of programs, something very, very similar. And the key thing with a timeline is that things are broken into frames, okay? So these are not seconds here. These are frames. And the idea is that a video is really just a collection of many pictures put together. You might have experienced it where you got a dictionary. I did this in elementary school. You know, it's got 1,000 pages or whatever. And then on each page, you write a little cartoon. So a little stick man and he's running or whatever. That's sort of the idea here. As you flip through it, it went through each of those pictures, and then your brain sort of put them together as a video. That's what's happening here. It's just a series of pictures that when they're put together, it looks like the object is moving. But in reality, it's just static for a fraction of a second. Generally, what we're going to be running here is 30 frames per second. That's pretty typical. I think movies play at about 24 frames per second. I think the Hobbit one was playing at 60 frames per second, which sort of made it hyper real. People are used to about 24, 30 frames per second when they're watching on TV. So when I look at this, then really 30 here, this whole time here is actually 1 second. To 60 is really 2 seconds. 90 is 3 seconds. And we're just going to make our video 100 long. So I'm actually going to set the end here. Okay, so we're going to start at frame 1, go to frame 100. Okay, so I just set that up and all this sort of gets faded out here. All right, now you also notice I've got this little green thing. I can click it anywhere here. That tells me what frame I'm in. So I'm going to make sure I'm on frame 1. And you can use the arrow keys on the keyboard as well. Set yourself to frame 1. Of course, I could just type it in here as well, 1. Nothing's really going on, okay? What we're going to do is rotate the, actually we're going to rotate 3 different things. We're going to rotate the periscope, we're going to rotate the rudder, and we're going to rotate the propeller as well. And in the end, we're going to move this boat, okay? But we're going to get these rotating first. So let's just do this for this video here. So what I'm going to do is grab that propeller. I'm going to go to a top view. I want to rotate it. Now, if I go into my rotation, I can figure out which axis it is. And sometimes you do this by experimentation. That doesn't look right. Okay, whoops. Put that back to 0. Why? It doesn't look right. Okay, it's going to be the z-axis here. And you can see, okay, that looks right. It's spinning around. Okay, so I'll just set that back to 0. So what you need to do for setting up animation is something called keyframes. Now, in the old days, before computers, if an artist wanted to rotate this, they'd have to draw every single picture with it rotating. What we can do is say, hey, I want this is what it to look like at the start. This is what I want it to look like at the end. You, the computer, fill in the middle. Okay, so what we're going to do here is make sure you're on frame 1, and we're going to insert something. So I'm going to make sure my cursor is in the into the 3D viewport here. I'm going to press I. Brings up an insert keyframe. This is only going to rotate, so I'm just going to set up a rotation keyframe. Click it. Now what you'll notice here is I've got this yellow line which indicates a keyframe. Now, nothing's going to happen, okay, because it needs to have at least 2 keyframes to know where to go from and where to end up. So I'm going to go right to 100 because we're not going to do anything too exciting here. I'm going to set up a rotation as well. But before I do that, I actually have to set how much it's going to rotate. Now, there's 360 degrees in one rotation. I used to do 3,600 rotation or degrees of rotation, which would be 10 rotations. That's a little bit too much. So I'm going to do half of that. So 360 divided by 2 is 180, and 180 times, well, basically how many times we're going to do it, I'm just going to do 1,800. Okay, so I'm going to set that to 1,800, which is half of 360, so it should do it 5 rotations there. And I'm going to press I again. Oops, once I press 1,800 there. Now you can see it doesn't look like it rotated because I've done it 5 complete rotations. I press I and set the rotation keyframe. And now you notice this comes up as yellow because it's got a keyframe on it. So what's really cool now, go back to 1. As I sort of go through the keyframes, you can see this is rotating. And so it's done all the rotating work for me. I can hit play here and it rotates. Okay, so that's the whole idea of keyframes. Don't worry about it slowing down. It just does that because it sort of gets to the end of the animation there. But that's the idea with keyframes. A beginning one to set it where I want it to begin, an ending one to where I want it to end, and then the computer fills in everything in between. So all it's done is said, okay, well, you've got to rotate at 1,800 in 100 frames, do the math. So basically, each frame, and you can sort of see here, 0.42, right? 1.6, 3.63. So that's actually not, it's not quite exact, but because it's sped up and slowed down there. But you can see they're sort of going up by, so that's 68, well 69 to 80, so going up by about 11 there. And now they're more consistent. Okay, that's the idea. All right, so we'll end here, but when we come back, we'll finish up those two other rotations, and then probably talk a little bit about setting up the camera. All right, see you then.